So we're coming into the final part of the day at the Ice Vector, and what I'd like to do is to welcome all of our panelists who Louisa will be introducing to you. If you're able to, please feel free to put your questions online, and we'll try to answer them during the session. So now we'll enjoy the next hour with our panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you everyone for being here today. I think it's been, from what we can see, it's been a very interesting and insightful day with some very inspiring talks. And we have some new faces as well today to join us. So thank you for being here. And we'll be touching on the subject of what are the challenges that NGO leaders are facing today, and how can we apply ICE in order to have positive outcomes and to face these challenges. We also have some Josmar joining us here, so that's great. What I would like to do is introduce everyone and one by one ask you to share a bit about the challenges and the solutions as well for today. So we could maybe start with Josmar, who we have here. With your experience as being an NGO leader in the Scouts Association in Malta, and your belief that there needs to be a better support system for NGOs, maybe you could share some points on the challenges you have faced as an NGO leader, and some points on how you would apply solutions to that.
Yes, no problems. So currently I am the Group Scout leader as a volunteer in a local village in Xaghra. But before I used to support the Scout movement nationally. And there are various challenges that one is experiencing recently, especially due to project-based funding, which to a certain point is a very nice thing. Now we have access to funds, but this requires, I would say, full-time support or a number of resources that might not be found in a normal NGO. And along my journey, especially supporting on a national level, it's been challenging to ensure that both these projects are aligned with the core objectives of the organization. So not to create projects for funding, but rather to create projects that suit the organization, and as well as to ensure that these volunteers, so volunteers give out in an NGO because they love to do it. Most often they do it for the emotion, for the giving part. So then if you need to correctly balance the support they need professionally to ensure that they are able to contribute in a pleasant way, and not to feel that this is a job, but rather as a giving opportunity, and the funds would be there to amplify their voice.
Thank you, Josmar. Very good points there, speaking about understanding and continuing with that purpose. And maybe we can have also Carey here, who's the president of Rotary Gozo. I know that you've worked internationally as well, so it might be interesting to also compare Malta to what you have experienced abroad.
I've been in Rotary for 20 years now, just gone. England, Canada, and now here for the last 3 years. If anybody doesn't know about Rotary, because they don't advertise themselves too well, but there are 1.5 million members in 35,000 clubs, and you name a country and there'll be a Rotary club there. Internationally, they deal with big projects like eradication of polio, water the world, but I'm more involved and more interested, I have to say, in the community that we choose to live in. The biggest problem here, and we have unique problems here, which is quite different to Canada and to the UK, is, and I think it all really started with a sort of diaspora of people emigrating in the 70s and 80s to Australia and New York and Toronto and places like that, often leaving what is now the elderly behind, and some of the carers who are caring for them are almost as in bad condition as they are. Many live in single rooms or 2 rooms in a big house. It's too big for them. They can't maintain it. They can't heat it and light it. And the Gozotans are generally, I find, very shy people. So they're very difficult to get at without intruding. And we hasten not to intrude on people's privacy and dignity. So what we do is we try and talk to priests, doctors, pharmacists, people like FSCG, care workers in the community to find out who is actually in need without going banging on doors. Once we do find them, it's a much easier job, but that is the biggest hurdle that we come across. One of the ways we should be looking at this is actually talking to other NGO members who maybe know who people are in need or what problems they have, and liaising better with them.
Thank you. I think that is something that came out a lot today, the point of collaboration and working together with others, which makes it so much easier to reach out, and it is part of that ICE element. And I think this is something that maybe Dr. Daren, Grasso, you could also touch on or share with us from the EU funding perspective. Any points?
As per my presentation earlier, I think partnerships are one of the challenges for local NGOs. When looking at EU funds, obviously for most cases you need to collaborate with other entities. And the thing is that you shouldn't look for partners once the call is out there, but you should start to create these connections, these networks prior to that. You build relationships with these NGOs, and then obviously when there is an opportunity, you team up together and apply. So we do suggest that local entities sort of they go out of their comfort zone and look for other entities, not just locally, not just collaborating with other entities in Malta, but most importantly even in other EU states. Because that will give them an edge, that will give them a plus in terms of readiness, so that when the call is there, they can apply. And it's usually a process that takes time. So we find that those entities that don't have connections and once the call is there, they want to apply, the process of trying to find a good partner is something which is not done over a week. You need time to process that, to do that. So, I mean, the suggestion is start early. We've just started a new programming period now. The last one ended in 2020, and we're now awaiting the new programs, the EU programs for these set of 7 years. So obviously it's the right time to start creating these connections.
Okay. Thank you, and the very good points there, and I think something that we'll continue touching on, and hopefully certain solutions have come out from today that we can all take forward. And I'd like to invite Victor as well here, who is the founder of Dreams of Horses. If you haven't been there yet, it's definitely a place to go and be inspired. Being an NGO leader, what do you feel are the solutions and the challenges first and the solutions?
Like everyone else, yeah, it's a big shock, but I'm that type of person that I focus to solve the problem, but not keep looking at the problem. So obviously you need to find different ways how to, if I talk about my Dreams of Horses farm, you know, it's a living thing. So the most important thing was like to find a way to keep the day-to-day care going, but also finding ways to continue putting my NGO out by, actually I find it, as many people are seeing it as a challenge, I saw it more, it was an opportunity to, by using social media, reach out more people, like the idea of the NGO through the social media to reach those people that up to now they didn't know about the.
So I think that's very important of finding that opportunity that you're able to explain that the therapy you do with horses and the interaction, how it was also a healing process.
Yeah, which is still something new for the islands, but it's making a difference. It's making a difference in many different ways. Yeah, so the challenges we have, but we always try to, for example, one of the things that when COVID started, we managed to do things that we was not able to do for a long time, gave us time to do them, but we prepared more to reach out more different abilities, which if we had to continue going, probably wouldn't make what we have managed to get ready now to, yeah.
I think that's fantastic, as in using this time to work on other things that weren't possible before and looking forward to the future. And I think that was planning for the now and continuing moving day to day, which is...
What I like to bring out, because I was hearing him about the EU funds to pair up with others. And as I was hearing him, it's not easy to find a partner. As Gozotans, we still do things a little bit. I think helping NGO on a small island, I'm talking about EU funds, in my opinion, they should be a little bit more specific, so we will be able to reach this type of funds. Because with those funds, we honestly can turn them into gold for others. Yeah. I had many experience when EU funds was available, but up to now, it is still so unreachable. They are there, but also, for example, one of the challenges that we had, when, like everyone else, there was emergency funds. It's important that if we focusing on NGOs, for example, I'm going to bring one example out because it's important. It was like there was possibility of every NGO get 5,000 euros. The money, the way they was designed is to go to pay wages, to pay. Now, most of the NGOs, they don't pay. They are done by voluntary works. You understand me? So yes. It's important that if things comes up, like they need to be in a certain way that do Dreams of Horses Farm needed 5,000 euros? Yes, did, but
maybe someone else would like to respond to what he's saying or give your own.
With regards to partnership, I think he made a good point that you have to find the right partner. And that brings me back to the point I was emphasizing earlier, that you need to start early, you need to create different connections, because as he said, finding the right partner might take time. And having the right people on board is important, even when you're implementing the project, because if you're the lead applicant, you're relying also on the work of what your partners are doing. So if you have people that are not committed on board, that will reflect on the results then. So, yes, that's a good point.
Okay, great. And does anyone else maybe want to...
So are you looking for a partner as a financial help or help to repair cages and fences and things like that? Or what are you looking for?
So, obviously, the Dreams of Horses Farm is still under construction. Like, we're still doing the structures in place, and we had many things had been planned, but because of what happened, like, we had to stand still. So I'm that type of person, I don't look back, but we might stand still for a bit, but I'm always thinking how to make another step forward. So one of the things that we managed to do, we managed to use social media to get more people to know about it, not only for people sort of to get publicity, but the whole idea was to reach out those people that never known how beneficial this place can be for people that maybe are not being reached out from the system. You know what I mean? But places like Dreams of Horses Farm, so when I talk about Dreams of Horses, I have other NGOs in mind. obviously are the organizations that can make a big difference to many others, you know, like, yeah. So, like as you were saying, I started, when I first got the idea, people with special needs in Gozo used to be still kept inside the houses. I was like the one that started using animals, taking my horses like to parkings because I didn't have a place. But the reason I was doing it like to get these people out of the houses. Yeah. Okay? So, it's a big challenge. But
it is. And
with regards to my experience and Victor, I thank God above that choice and chance brought us together a couple of years back. And when I went over and I actually saw what he had in mind and what he's creating day by day, it's forever evolving, and the base mantra behind why he's doing it and how he's using horses and other animals for the betterment of children, especially with special needs. I think, besides it being honorable and noble, it is so functional in its own right. And he's a simple man, and he's modest, and he always wears his heart on his sleeve. And beyond what we do, with regards to the Sigma Foundation, I always said I have to form some kind of support structure to actually use any means possible for the betterment and for actually exposing his product to the public. So what Victor was speaking about and using social media to put himself out there, we were discussing this back room before, and I said, the only thing which is lacking is people actually having cognitive value to what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, what is Dreams of Horses? Where is it? How can I get to it? What are the hours? Because once you're there, you're hooked. I've been taking people on treks now for 20 years. And we organized a weekend over at Vic's place. And we always get different value at different levels from different people. But by common consensus, I would say this was the experience that evoked the greatest testimonies. And for that I remove my hat, sir. Okay.
And thank you for sharing that. And I think it's something that a lot of NGOs are struggling with or challenged, the idea of expressing and showing the impact they actually have. So that challenge of you didn't experience it until you went there.
Exactly.
So I don't know, maybe even Josmar, if you wish to come in, maybe from your own even hands-on experience, or anyone else would like to share, what would be other certain solutions for NGOs, either with any of the challenges that have just been mentioned now, or even that idea of being able to communicate the goodness you do, the impact, or what are the differences you are making in society?
So yeah, one of the particular situations that we have in Malta and Gozo is small NGOs, and unfortunately this brings a small pool, which to a certain point is very nice because you usually have a close-knitted team, and they do a lot of stuff together. However, sometimes there are issues of getting the right skills that you would need, and especially with my experience when, for example, seeing larger scout organizations across Europe, you would have people that maybe have a media background and would be able to help your social media and all of that. So one of the challenges that I think as a population we have, we should be involved in NGOs or voluntary organizations to do maybe the core thing, but this core thing nowadays in today's world needs many support activities such as social media when we have to do with EU funding. Nowadays MEUSAC does a great job at supporting VO, but then you need to implement. So who's going to be the administrator of such fund? How abroad it's normal to have a fundraiser role within the organization. Usually, even when you see the committees of VOs in Malta, it's just the standard. You would have a president, a secretary. There is just these standard roles, and we need to innovate and revise our NGO structures to better suit the needs, and also a question of change, not changing, but the transfer of information. So usually in Malta, we would have situations where you would have a secretary which is doing a great job, but then he decides to leave. What's the time plan to change? And this needs to happen through the empowerment of younger generation. We are MVOs or NGOs for a purpose. So the purpose needs to remain central, and we need to ensure that the younger or the newer volunteers have the same ownership as you do to enable a succession plan.
I think these are all very fantastic points, and working with NGOs and working with them, you see them all the time, that these are important points to touch on. And maybe I would like to ask Carey also, maybe some...
Yeah, I was listening to this interest because I think we have to recognise that in our own organisations, we're not good at everything. Mm-hmm. Some organisations have skills, some are good at fundraising, some are good at practical things. Now, you may not be good at fundraising. We are. We can help you with that. We may not be, we're too old in our organisation to help you build your fence. But there's Bob a job there.
Yeah. I'm watching him. Yeah.
I know inflation's gone up now.
He just lives up the road.
Yeah,
so
but, and I think with the communication of actually seeing what we do and joining. For example, we run car boot sales in conjunction with FSEG. Okay. The money goes to them and they comes back into the community. We partner with ESU, English Speaking Union, and we go into schools and do English speaking and debating and public speaking. We have a Rotability mobility program for disabled people, which is where you might link in as well. So there's all these things, but we just have to keep talking to each other.
Yeah, I think at this particular time, I think all the NGOs, first they need to start to get to know each other, what they do, by sharing, and and from each other we can learn. Mm-hmm. So if I'm not, maybe, as you said, not good in marketing, maybe I can, you can help us. So that can also make a difference. But I go back a little bit to EU funds. Also, you need to understand that, as he was saying, we are small NGOs too. We don't have an office that it's ready there to. Mm-hmm. I think it's about time that also EU have a good talk with the NGO. It's not, for sure, it's not a big number like on this small island. I'm talking about Gozo, yeah, and reach out with us, and we can explain to you where we are always getting stuck, because
Yes, the capacity is one of the issues which I was also going to talk about. I've discussed this with Louisa earlier. The capacity of the NGOs, both financial capacity and the human capacity of an NGOs in Malta, given our small size, can be a challenge when tapping into EU funds. The solution would be, as Josmar said earlier, I think we have to innovate the way we design our organizations. You can't expect to have a one-man show organization applying for funding that goes into thousands or millions, because obviously the implementation then will be close to impossible. So you have to have an organization with a solid structure. You have to start thinking that way. Also have to start getting closer to each other instead of having, a number of organizations focusing on the same area. You have one big entity, one big organization, bringing everyone together, which will make it easier for us then to apply for funds. So the solution will be to start and think more of these innovative ways of how to do everyday work, how to operate as NGOs on this island, which will put us in a better place than when it comes to EU funds. I think that will be the solution to this problem. Also, one has to realize that the EU has different funding programs with different budgets, different implementation burdens. So one has to realize that, listen, maybe Horizon Europe, which is the biggest EU funding program, is not appropriate for me, given the size of my entity, but there are other funding opportunities. So if it's not one program, it might be the other. I think people have to start looking at this process, and we as MEUSAC can offer that information. So I suggest that people also like Victor can approach us, we can discuss, and we'll see how we can help him and other similar entities to apply for funding. That's our job at the end of the day.
Thank you. And I think this point of communication, which was also echoed by Nick, which speaks about the communication between the NGOs to see how you can support each other, but also the communication with other entities to really understand and ask those questions and ask why and see how else they can help you and support you.
Also, Louisa, I'd like to emphasize the point that these even small organizations, they should approach MEUSAC because we have the visibility of all the EU funding programs. So obviously something which might look overwhelming for an individual that is looking for funds, through MEUSAC, we try to find a solution for him. So we do encourage NGOs, schools, even businesses, any type of entity to reach out to us. We'll sit on a table or through an online meeting nowadays, and we'll take the matter forward.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I think, yes, for
that,
sure, please.
Okay, we call ourselves small NGOs, but at this moment in time, in this challenging time, small also can make big difference to the whole world. So we should not keep looking at us small, but we are one of like everyone else. Okay.
I agree with that, and I think it's something that was also communicated before, that a number of small NGOs getting together can have the biggest impact because they're more agile, they're able to do things in a better, more impactful way. I want to touch on some points that we mentioned about innovation and also funding, and maybe turn to Keith. You have innovated and collaborated with an idea that came out and that you're working on in 2021.
Yeah, well, as we all know, just to state the obvious, we're passing through very trying times at the moment. And if I had to stick to our normal template, train people to go up a mountain, use it as a platform, springboard to the gathering of funds to finance a project in Africa, we'd hit a wall. So we had to contort the situation, maybe make it a bit more pliable. And we decided to explore different avenues. We as Sigma Foundation, we've been collaborating with the missionary movement, and we've worked symbiotically, even synergistically, possibly for years now. And of late, we have, I've tried to put my best foot forward with regards to Victor and his project and Dreams of Horses. But over and above that, we know that, preemptively, we know that the government vouchers will be out soon, possibly within the next couple of weeks. And we realized that many people, for whatever reason, weren't translating this at retail level. They were either going unattended, not picked up, expiring in many cases. So we said, why don't we have a call out there and see how many people would be willing to actually go out on an arm and a limb, by and large, and pass these on. And we had a trial run the first time round, albeit late in the day. We had maybe 3 weeks of activity, but we collected 5,000 euros worth. This time round, we're much better organized, and we've benchmarked the 20K. We've got 20K in our mind. I have no doubt that we'll supersede that. And we're actually going to be passing these on to 11 different NGOs and charities. 20K is what we're looking at. I mean, my mind is telling me 50. But without throwing caution to the wind and without being overly optimistic, 20K would put a bit of a Cheshire Cat grin on my face. So yeah, we have to be pliable, we have to be malleable, we have to be versatile in our approach. And the glass is either half full or half empty. It's down to choices, ultimately.
Thank you for that, and wishing you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
in that venture. I think we've touched on a lot of challenges, and even throughout the day there were points of resilience and ensuring that you adapt or reinvent yourself. And I think I'd like to take this time to look at the solutions, to look at how can we apply ICE, so the idea of innovating, collaborating and evolving. But I want to ask you all to give maybe a bit of a tangible action that we could leave with here today. So maybe based on one of the challenges that has been mentioned here, what would you take home or share with the third sector for them to really act on it? Shall we start with Josmar?
Oh, no problem. From my end, it's, I think, a bit of, we need to innovate from a mentality perspective to recognize that some NGOs require administrative work. And this could be through part-time or full-time. Sometimes, especially when I started back in the VO and started my experience as a professional fundraiser, there were issues of like, but we're an NGO, we're all volunteers, now we're gonna have employees and this is all going to ruin the spirit and it's gonna be an issue. But in actual fact, as we work together, you realize that different partners, if you would have someone that would be supporting the volunteers achieve more, then we would be able to evolve. Because that person would be there to help them collaborate, to keep up meeting minutes, to keep up deadlines, to do the small things. And some VOs or some NGOs, not everyone, might need that. And we need to look at it as an opportunity.
Thank you. And I think maybe echoing the idea that we need to be, all NGOs, we need to start being more effective and efficient. And it's not about being small, it's not about not having the capacity, but it's about finding the solutions to have that. So like you're saying, the administration work, the different partners. So thank you for sharing that. Would anyone else like to add in their solution? Or?
To add with what Josmar said, I think there are two main solutions. Creating solid structures. So I go back to the capacity problem, that unless you have a solid capacity, tapping into EU funds is going to be difficult. And then obviously the idea of partnerships, that you don't close yourself to what you're doing and you shut out everyone else, but you collaborate, both in terms of local collaboration and even collaboration with other entities abroad. For me, those are the two principles from where each organization needs to start, and then the rest will follow.
Okay, thank you. Maybe some international...
Yeah, I think one of the simplest things through the NGO is to actually get a sort of a directory of the NGO organizations, what they do, what they're trying to do, what problems they have. What manpower do you have? For example, in our organization, we have an agronomist that we lend him out to other clubs in Malta if they have a particular problem about agriculture or planting or something like that. We've got care workers. Now, sometimes they're not as interested in particular projects that we have, but they might be interested in projects you have, and you can borrow them. So we need to know what organizations' problems are, what they have, what they can lend out, what they can partner with, really. And I think the only people who could do that is the NGO structure itself.
Very good points, and thank you. And I think maybe following up from today, it's about actually third sector coming together with these solutions and actually putting them out there. And maybe, Martin, this is something that we can take on following up and seeing all these different ideas. How can we actually take them forward? Keith?
Well, it's obviously a very complicated science, philanthropy, and the way forward. Trying times have kind of cajoled us into twisting into various directions. And with regards to us, we've always been kind of typified as being the adventure group that managed to raise funds for Africa, which is fine. We can live with that. But over and above that, we've been involved in various other things. I mean, we're speaking, Dr. Grasso over here, he was mentioning EU funds throughout the course of his conversation with us, and we have applied. So we found the time and space to actually kind of change tack and look at that, explore. Is it guaranteed? Of course it's not. But if you're not going to shoot, you're not going to score. You know, you might hit the corner flag, but you're trying. And ultimately, I think it's one of those mantras that you need to keep close to your heart. try. You'll fail, hit a knee, go down, but come back up for more. And there's Victor, we're helping Victor out with his project. We've crowdfunded in various directions, and it's been fun, actually. My Revolut card might blow up soon, but anyway, we'll look at that later. And yes, we are preparing ourselves for better times. But I think we do need to look at the situation and not pigeonhole ourselves in a direction. I remember going back a couple of hours, and Nathan was discussing Darwin, and what he said was true. The species that survive aren't the best, they're the ones that were most adaptable. And that is the way forward, adaptability. Now, there's no fixed holy grail with regards to your way forward. Whatever works for you. But you can't sit down on the fence and say, okay, I've been whacked by bad luck. Hoo-ha. It doesn't work like that. You need to move forward. You need to at least try to venture forth on whatever front suits your means.
Thank you. And I think there are lessons learned not only now during a pandemic, but something that we should be taking on
for sure,
moving forward from day to day. Would someone else like to add in any other points, maybe Victor?
So like something like what we did today, okay? I believe that those things should be a little bit more often. The more participants can take part, you know, like, in my opinion, is like we take a picture and we get to know each other. And through this, I think we can make a difference for whatever will come in the future. Like, because if we know each other, we also are stronger to face anything that shows up here. And we should not give up. We need to keep looking forward. 2 days ago was raining. Today we have the sun. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. I think what I'd like to close off is the main points that we have discussed today. And then I would like to ask everyone if there is something else you would like to add or even ask each other. I think what we've touched on, which has really come out and has been really, is to remember that we do need to communicate with each other. The collaboration is definitely, and innovation. The fact that we do need to continue adapting and seeing where things go, even though we might be scared and fearful of what's going to happen tomorrow or if the pandemic will continue. It's about looking at things now and moving forward then. I'd like to see if anyone has a question to ask anyone else, so maybe any Josmar or one
just maybe as a final observation on my part, we're speaking about transference of information across different NGOs, kind of tying up, using resources to the best of that symbiotic relationship. I also believe it would be sinful where one had to not exploit the intelligence and the informatics related to other associations. I mean, for example, the first time I went over to Victor's place, I remember, he's a font of information. And when you see people coming by, they're studying veterinary surgery, but they will never get out of a book what that man can teach them. But it would be absolutely sinful for that information to remain confined within the bounds of one single farm in Xaghra. So I do ask people, come forward, venture forth and share that information. Victor was more than willing to go out on an arm and a limb to share that, so let's use it. Let's exploit it to the best of our capabilities.
And what's your advice to the NGO sector, to other NGO leaders? Maybe because you have the confidence and you're able to share your story so well. So what would be your advice?
I think that the biggest problem, the devil's playground lies in the fact that people can take disillusion and discontentment and use it completely negatively. Now, I think it's useless sitting back and just giving in to the trials and tribulations that a bad card can twist in your direction. We're always going to find problems. It comes part and parcel with the territory. But once again, your outlook, your perspective, that will govern and dictate play. If you want to go forward, grab that goal and use that to the best of your capabilities. Yes, you'll stumble, you'll fall, you get knocked out here and there, but always venture forward. I mean, true, it's simple and it's Spartan, but you cannot use the half-empty glass as an excuse or an alibi. If you really hold your cause close to your heart, always be forward-looking, always be optimistic towards the situation. We deal with people, and I train people, some of them are completely ungainly, and you know that you have to breathe life into them. So always move forward, always take it from the positive point of view. There you go.
And if I have to add, learn by doing. So it's important to move forward, it's important, but one of the mantra of scouting is to learn from doing. So yeah, there were moments in my career, in my life as a VO, that in a volunteer organization, that I was nearly crying, or I was crying because certain situations were difficult. And why is this not working? Why after all these hours? But the point is moving forward and learn from your experiences. So you need to sit down a little bit and analyze what went wrong. And it's important to capture this and to learn from our own experiences.
Thank you. I think fantastic things. It's always about seeing what happened in the past, even looking at 2020, see what worked for you and what didn't, and how can you take that forward for this year. Would you have any last advice you would like to share?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest problems we face here, not just here in every community, is harnessing the young. And if we can sort of replicate ourselves and what we're trying to do and bring them up in that same sort of ideals, then we've got a force to be reckoned with. It's a little bit more difficult here, we find, because our membership in our club are particularly quite elderly, and therefore there's a generation gap. Although we do find that we get on better with the teenagers and young 20-year-olds than the 30 and 40-year-olds for some reason. I think it misses a generation. If this is why we go into the schools, and some of that's now, we have a very good debating club, public speaking club, winning prizes all over the place. And they are gradually filtering into the system, and then we harness them on environmental cleanup projects and working with the disabled and all sorts of other things. So that to me is the big goal here. Trying to break down the barriers between ages, cultures, languages and everything else, and just all muck in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe you also would like to share maybe something that you are doing here in Gozo through the Rotary Club.
Well, I do.
One of the points that you...
We have a school program, we have a vocational grant program where we can give up to €500 for training or equipment to Godston residents under the age of 25. That fund is virtually around, that was match funded with the Ministry of Tourism and Economic Development. We do care in the home, we do visiting hospitals, not at the moment, obviously. School projects is on hold, sadly, because I miss that really badly. We have a Rotability project where we actually raise funds and we buy equipment to help people with disabilities come out of their houses. The first one was a stair riser where you could strap a wheelchair onto like a little tractor which goes up and down stairs, because often the carer is in as bad or if not worse condition than the carer for. So then we had a lift to lift somebody out of bed and into a bath and out. We picked up a foldable wheelchair for some others, and that equipment tends to go to FSEG, who are more in touch with the people actually in need in the community. They insure it, they maintain it, they replace parts in it with us. So it's very much a partnership venture. Environmental programs, we had a big one last year about providing free paper bags to the grocery shops to try and wean them off plastic bags, and then clear up schemes. I mean, I'll go on and on, which I won't, because we have so many different initiatives that
that's great.
I'll bore you to death.
No, I'm sure you won't, but I think that's great, and I think even hearing about a bit of the things that you have done, but not all of it. So I think at this point of communication and for other people to find out what other NGOs are doing is important to continue that conversation. Unless we have any questions from the audience, or anything I wish to finalize here, please, if anyone has lost anything they wish to add, we can do so now.
I think one point that was mentioned is the power of the youth. Now, even maybe I'm still young, but when I see the younger generation, the 15, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old, for example, for me, this pandemic, especially in terms of, especially for Scouts, where our main activity is meeting up, doing camps, doing outdoor activities, it has kind of dampened the social spirit. But then I would see the 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are now coming of age, and their energy and organizing stuff, and maybe to a certain point not my liking. For example, I'm not so intrigued with playing an online game together, but when I join in their course as a leader and see their level of engagement, I think this pandemic has totally changed our comprehension of how to approach things, and it will have an impact. How long, I'm not sure. And we need to adapt. When the pandemic is over, I'm sure that things won't return to 2 years ago, to the way we organize stuff, to the way we do meetings. Before, it would be strange to do an online meeting. Nowadays, we do online meetings all the time because everyone expects to, finds it easier. So we need to see how we are going to adapt and allow different generations to collaborate together.
Thank you so much for that, and I wish to thank everyone here and also the Ice Factor for having us. So thank you, and I think the last point is let's make sure that we continue innovating, collaborating and evolving. Thank you.